time for the ride home in ENC.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
This is your 5 o'clock drive with Patrick Johnson.
Holy mackerel!
More news, more interviews, more ECU stories than you can shake a stick at. Hey, stop shaking that stick. This is the Patrick Johnson Show.
Pirates win! Pirates win!
On 94.3 The Game.
All right, thanks for being with us. Hello again, everybody. Patrick Johnson here with you as we get ready for another action-packed edition of today's PJ Show. A fresh edition for you here on 94.3 The Game, online at 943thegame.com and on the IBX Media app. Mike Mullis, spoke with him a little earlier today. We'll bring that to you coming up in just a few minutes. Of course, the big ECU news as it pertains to baseball is the confirmation that Bradley Zayak, who was starting last night, rumored to maybe be getting into the transfer portal a little before that, but as the days passed, it didn't appear that it may not happen, but it was confirmed solid earlier today. Bradley Zayak headed towards the portal, so we'll see where he lands. And we'll get Mike to discuss this. You'll hear what Mike Mullis had to say about it coming up in a little bit. Look, these are transactional situations now, and this is the way it's going to be. And it's just not East Carolina; it's everywhere. It is the thing that I think maybe is, takes a little bit of the love out of pro sports for certain people, and that is you don't have people that are with the team, years on end. They're a lot more celebrated now than they used to be, but people that start and finish their career with the team professionally is very much the exception. And particularly in certain sports, basketball, football certainly come to mind, baseball even, so really all of them. But those unique players, and that has matriculated its way down to the college ranks. And you have to look at these teams as separate entities year over year. It's hard to have that thread of culture, and anybody you can hang on to for more than a couple of years that could represent that for you is certainly a big deal. So Mike Mullis on to talk about that. Zayak, I thought, pitched outstanding, as we all know, against Coastal Carolina, and I think that is what Bradley Zayak perhaps is basing a little bit of this on. It might have been some frustration over the role, or maybe not having the long enough leash. He certainly did it as a firewall in the last game of the year, starting and going to the eighth inning, into the eighth inning before the run was inherited and allowed. So Bradley Zayak, who I liked, I thought he has a great deal of potential out. It was a lay day at the Big Rock today. Only one boat of the 272. Well, let me rephrase that. 271 boats took a lay day today. Many of them took a lay day yesterday. Only 43 boats went out. So in the 2 days of fishing, you've had 43 vessels out in day one and theoretically one out today. So they're not doing any Big Rock TV or Big Rock Radio or anything like that today on the Big Rock app. What's interesting about this is there were some really tough storms that blew through this morning, and they actually had some damage. The entranceway into the Big Rock landing that the public kind of has that greets them toppled over, landed on some vehicles with these, I guess, straight-line winds from the storm that blew off, and obviously you had rocky waters. Now, terrible at math. Let me do a little math here. Bobby BB Bop. My math teachers always said you're not going to have a calculator with you at all times. You do now. So for 229 boats, their lay days are done because 229 took it yesterday, 271 taking a lay day today. As I understand it, that means that 243 of those will have to fish the rest of the tournament regardless of the conditions in order to be in on the money. So lots of action-packed things tonight at the Big Rock event tent. They have a big happening down there. Our coverage will begin tomorrow with Talk of the Town down there. We were supposed to be down there today doing our show, but it ended up not working out. We could have maybe done it from the Big Rock event tent. But que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. So that's where we are with that. And Duke last night knocked off. In fact, it's since come out that Chris Pollard has taken the Virginia job, so he'll be the new head coach in Charlottesville. That leaves the Duke baseball job open. We'll see how that will be replaced. There's some strong indications that the Cordell coach may very well be the guy in line to get that one. All of this kind of seems like it was a done deal. Duke losing to Murray State, which is probably one of the great stories. To me, I think if you rank the stories, there are 4 points in this College World Series that I think I would, 5 things, as I would say, sort of the 5 things you need to know. First one, obviously, is Murray State. Played a 800-seat facility that looks more like Old Harrington Field than it does a representative baseball stadium. The players pulled the tarp. The coaches cut the grass. It's very old school in the way it operates out of the Missouri Valley. So obviously, Murray State getting there as a 4 seed, the 4th 4 seed ever. And I think the second, though, since 2023. I think you got to put, in no particular order after that Murray State story, this is the first time since 1957 that there's not been a repeat team in Omaha at the College World Series. At least there's been at least one repeat team to have gone the year prior every year since 1957. You know, obviously there are instances where it's multiple teams, but that's a pretty remarkable story if you think about it. I mean, that's going damn near 70 years without there being a situation where it's all new teams in Omaha for the first time, and that's what we have, or at least not having been there the year prior. That's probably the better way to put that, and the more accurate way. So that's a pretty big storyline and an interesting quirk, and it'll be interesting to see how all of these teams handle it, having not had the experience of ever being in Omaha or not being there last year at least. The other story to me, and this maybe is right up there with Murray State, and that's Oregon State. I know Oregon State's won a lot of championships. They have that tradition going for them. But to me, the Oregon State thing's really interesting because they played as an independent this year. And you think going the route of an independent is difficult in football, like UMass has had to do and like Connecticut is doing. You know, it's really difficult for anybody not named Notre Dame in this day and age. And even for the Irish, it's becoming a situation where they are entering into scheduling agreements probably that they didn't envision they would be entering in 10, 15, or even 20, 25 years ago. Their independence is what they crave, and the fact that they can command a huge amount of money is what they crave for their television rights. But Oregon State played 19 games at home prior to the postseason. Didn't have a conference tournament to play in, and they got a top 8 national seed and cashed in and won their series in the Super 2-1 over Florida State. So that's one of the big stories. The other big story is the lack of the SEC. Just 2 teams out of so everybody cheats. And then the All-Coast Conference with just one, and that's Louisville, who had a pretty good thing going at one time, a return to form after some lean years for the Cardinals. And so that's, you know, a combination of just 2 SEC teams after I think all but 2 got in, and a combination of the fact that the SEC, which represented half of the field last year, is just represented by 1. And then obviously Coastal Carolina, who, you know, I think in a way you put them as one of the favorites going into this thing. To me, that makes, they've, 22 in a row? Their pitching is built to handle a situation like this. They are a real gritty team who gets it done offensively and does just enough offensively. Got a lot of moxie, a lot of confidence. I think Kevin Schnall is a really good coach. So you've got a team that I would say probably with Arkansas and maybe LSU are the favorites to win this thing. We'll look and see what the odds are saying. Back from his vacation, and boy, did he have a cutesy time out in Denver. Not only was he at a bougie event, I didn't mean to wake you from your slumber there, Philip. Not only was he at a bougie event, but he was there for a very special weekend, I understand, in Denver, which he was, I'm sure, fully taking part in. Philip the Ref Pilkington.
Yeah, I wasn't taking part in that. I think that was with it being June, I think that was a weekend everywhere, not just Denver, but, you know.
So Philip is back from Denver, where he was at a wedding, And there's a great story where Ric Flair said in a promo, and he has since said in what they call shoot interviews in the wrestling world. Are you telling me I need to get out here? Is that why I'm hearing the music?
Yeah, Molly's ready.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah. Tell your
Pilkington,
thing real quick.
well, I was going to say, Pilkington was at an event where the liquor spilled probably cost more than most people's house payments.
Yeah.
That's how bougie it was.
Yeah, you can make fun of me for this one for sure.
Is this pirate music?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Mike Mullis, spoke with him, and we'll get to that coming up next here on the Patrick Johnson Show.
We're back to the show.
I missed you. We all missed you. Did you miss him?
This is the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
To be with you on this Tuesday Patrick Johnson Show, and Mike Mullis, as promised, in the studio with us here. Mully, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
Things going well? You feeling okay? I know you've been fighting it a little bit.
Hurt, Mully.
That's good.
You
got to battle through.
Got to battle through.
Well,
No time. It's I was talking. We had Shane Winkler in the studio yesterday, and he was talking about Marv Levy, the old Bills coach. Didn't have time to get sick during the season. As soon as the season was over, got sick.
you know the best ability is availability.
There you go.
So diligence.
That's
good.
what it is.
I'm glad you're playing through the pain.
Clean living and perseverance.
You and Riley Johnson. I've always thought of y'all as
we're
the same caliber.
Similar last name. Two Eastern North Carolina guys. Pirate legends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One in his own mind.
One in his own mind.
And we'll let them decide who that is.
We'll let them decide. Yes, exactly. Well, Mike, the news du jour is another Pirate in the portal, Bradley Zayak, who may have pitched the best game probably since the Norby 19 strikeout performance. I would put it right up there as like 1A, given the stakes, maybe the best performance by a pitcher this year for ECU.
Yeah, given the stakes and the circumstances beyond just what was at stake there with win and move on or lose and go home. Pitch a 1-0 ball game, pitched great. The way he went about it was refreshing to see, just from a body language standpoint. I mentioned that several times on air during the broadcast of that game. I hate to see him go. You know, you look at you lose he and Lance Williams both, and obviously Pruitt another one. But man, when you looked at especially the two freshmen, those are guys that you were like, man, this is a bright future for this pitching staff. So, Coach Galvin, guys, they got to regroup and they start all over again. And again, I don't know that that's not just the current ditto, in college athletics. So, hate to see him go. I wonder as the days move on what we'll learn. We'll see where he lands and probably take some kind of inference from where he lands as to what may or may not have happened. So. Hate to see him go, but I know that the staff over there, if a player don't want to be here, then so be it.
So the Invoke thing is to announce, who's returning, and a lot of the good vibes from the fan base were kind of quickly squashed down with the Zayak news today. But I guess that's a thing now in the day and age. You announce you're staying.
It's kind of funny. I wonder where that comes from. Like, is that are the kids, the players just going, hey, I'm going to announce I'm staying, or does somebody in marketing or whatever say, hey, we want everybody to announce they're staying?
It's a little bit of a marketing creation.
So I wonder if this doesn't ferret out some other folks. They're like, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm willing to make that bold of a statement right now. I may want to let this thing play out before I make that commitment. But anyway, I wonder. You can't help but wonder if that's what kind of drove Zayak out of the shadows. And he goes, well, instead of saying it and then leave it, I'll go ahead and tell the world I'm leaving. But, I have noticed that a lot of the guys have landed different places. Obviously, the Maryland, Georgia with the two arms, but Roger Vergara at Jacksonville State and Neil Griffin at Wingate.
Right. There was somebody else who went to Upstate.
Keita Bowman, USC Upstate, who was a regional team this year. So, the guys are landing and they're getting opportunities to continue their career. And at the end of the day, man, that's what it's all about for these players.
That Wingate program's been championship level too.
Yeah, Division II, but a team that won a national championship just a handful of years back. And so I think it's a great fit for Neil, and I know Coach Gregory at Wingate very closely, very good friend. And I think that's going to be in his backyard. They saw him play in high school.
Right.
They recruited him lightly, but thought that he was probably going to be a little bit better than them out of high school from a family perception standpoint. So anyway, it all works out. Things come full circle, and that's why that's why so many of these programs now are recruiting a little more holistically. A Division II program recruiting a kid based on what might happen down the road is a pretty smart investment.
When we last talked to you, as Mike Mullis joins us here in the studio today, it was prior to the tweet from Cliff Godwin about the post on X that the system is broken.
Mm-hmm.
How do you view it?
It's interesting. I think the effort to be more above board may have made things more shady than ever from the standpoint of the aggression of the recruiting of maybe the quote unquote improper recruiting. I do think it's certainly easy to say the system is broken. You could also go back and make the counter argument that not specifically talking about baseball, but talking about sports in general, and more specifically big revenue sports where programs have made millions, if not billions of dollars over time on the backs of young men and young ladies that were never compensated. So was the system equally as broken then as it is now, and is now just we as an older generation, we don't like it as much because it's not what we grew up with. It's not what we knew.
The coaches we talked to, you could tell the ones that everybody says, well, you got to embrace it. Well, you tell the ones that do embrace it versus the ones that are just giving lip service or being dragged, kicking, and screaming, and you better embrace it.
No, it is, and you know what? If we talk about baseball, and I know the Coastal situation much better than I know the Murray State situation, but I do know that from the onset with NIL and the portal, Coastal Carolina saw it as opportunity. They saw it, and obviously, baseball's a little cheaper to play in the portal baseball-wise, although some of the numbers still are like, wow, that's a big number, but it's much cheaper than to go out and get the quarterback from Tulane to go to Duke for $4 million.
Right.
So you can make some noise in the baseball world for a lot less zeros. So Coastal Carolina, out of the gate, man, they changed their recruiting philosophy. They were very diligent in the portal. They were very analytics-driven, very driven through relationships. So if a coach in Pennsylvania that had a relationship with Kevin Schnall said, hey, you need to come see Patrick Johnson. He'd be a great player for you. They made a beeline to Pennsylvania to see that kid.
Right.
So, I mean, they out of the gate said, hey, listen, this gives us a chance. We're not going to have the maybe $9 million that Vandy has, but we could take our money and spread it, and we could be impactful maybe at the $800,000 range, which was what we heard Pat Hallmark from UTSA say that was.
You believe that?
That was the number they had. I mean, I have no reason not to, and I think that would be a fairly bold statement to make if it weren't true. You know what I mean? To come out and say, hey.
That seems like a lot of money for UTSA in baseball, though.
I mean, that's about where Coastal is.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's, and they're you would think on kind of on par and trending in the right direction. Both obviously played in Super Regionals, and now Coastal on to Omaha. But I'd be very curious as to what Murray State has. Interestingly enough, this time last year, man, I was like, I really thought the separation between the haves and the have-nots went from being not too much to being the Grand Canyon, and I thought we'll never see the Omaha be non-ACC, non-SEC programs. Tremendously positively surprised that you get Murray State.
Pleasantly so.
Pleasantly so. And you get Murray State, you get Coastal. Coastal won it in 2016. Everybody knows that. And then the other teams that are there, quite frankly, aren't the other. You got the two SEC programs. Other than that, it's there are a bunch of surprises, and I think it adds the parity back to the game. But it's interesting. I think it goes to show you that baseball is just such a wild card that the great player doesn't necessarily buy you the W, as opposed to college basketball. You go buy the great player, and it fast tracks you.
It is also interesting to me that if the Pac-12 had not dissolved, you'd have 3 teams out of that conference.
Right.
Now, who knows how it would have worked out, had the conference stayed together. But it is interesting you have those sort of 3 West Coast teams. And the committee is trying to involve more West Coast hosting sites, especially the regional round in recent years.
Yeah, and I think part of that is to maintain the regional nature of the regionals. Right? You have teams from the West Coast have
that's the name.
Yeah, correct. That have to have a place to play. And again, yes, we saw Florida State, the Super Regionals have to travel all the way across
Those
country.
are the Super Regionals.
That's correct. And, I remember the one that was the most egregious to me was it's been some years back. Steven Strasburg was still at San Diego State, and UVA played their way through the ACC tournament into a regional.
Right.
Well, next thing you know, they're winning. They're finishing their regional on Monday, and they're making flight arrangements on Tuesday to get to San Diego, on Wednesday, and they had to go from Charlottesville to San Diego. So that one was pretty tough. But through the nature of having the regionals, they have to have those West Coast sites, and there's always going to be teams out there that make it important to have those sites because they're going to play in them.
Mike Mullis with us here. Are you surprised North Carolina didn't advance through?
Very, very, and the way it happened, just kind of a meltdown. Up 4-0, every opportunity in the world, and then it just kind of got away from them. And you have to wonder, obviously, not just because he's a local player, but Matthew Mateus being out of their bullpen. He was a guy that would have been a high leverage guy that they could have gone to. Now, I think Scott Forbes and Coach Jackson, the staff there, would tell you that hey, they still had plenty of bullets, so they thought, but it just didn't go their way. I will tell you, man, I thought the way Scott Forbes handled that in the post game was exceptional.
Mike Mullis with us here. The Oregon State story maybe gets lost a little bit in the shuffle because of what Murray State has done and what Coastal has done. But what they have achieved this year, in some ways, is even more impressive. Only played, I think, less than 20 home games. An independent, hosted, and were a super or top 8 seed and advanced through. I mean, this might be the last time we see something like that.
It's lost because you remember, or people remember Adley Rushman, and they remember
and I realize,
the great,
right.
The reputation of that program still exists. And again, if you're not following it closely, you're probably not even very aware of what that program has been through this year. But what they did, you're right, is a big deal. And again, man, I mean, how cool is it to see Coastal and to see Murray State? I'm going to tell you, I would have bet the ranch that Murray State had no chance.
Right.
But, man, watching them play last night against Duke, and, man, they just kind of stayed full-court press and driving balls out of the ballpark. The moment was not too big. Their pitcher was really, really good. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully those two programs can go out and make some noise in Omaha.
Their park looks like Old Harrington Field. If you look at, the infamous aerial shot. And the coach apparently cuts the grass there.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
It's the way it used to be. It's kind of stuck in a time warp there. And for a second, I thought you might be talking about the ballpark at Duke because it's it's come a long ways, but it leaves a little to be desired.
I thought they did as good a job dressing it up.
100%. They put a lot of lipstick on that pig to make it look as good as it did.
And I really like what they did in the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to try to keep. I mean, they gave it a little high top table party pavilion.
I wonder if I literally watching it. I'm going. I wonder if they paid extras to come in here and hey, we're going to pay you $100 and we're going to give you hot dogs and hamburgers.
Apparently, it's sold out quickly, in 30 minutes.
I hear that, but I just find that very hard to believe. But maybe it did. Maybe it did. Are you surprised? I guess you are surprised they didn't end up advancing through, given the matchup. Yeah, given the matchup, and I will tell you, I think it's going to be interesting to see if. How long Pollard remains the head coach at Duke. The word on the street has been that he is a highly thought of candidate for the UVA job. So I don't know what the benefit.
Is that a good job?
Yeah, I mean, it historically has been a great job. It does tell me something when Brian O'Connor and Kevin McMullen leave to go to the SEC that apparently the folks at UVA are willing to commit to a point,
right? But
maybe not willing to go all in. And if you see the contract that Brian O'Connor got at Mississippi State, the north of $2 million. I think it was 2.3 is what I saw. Now, it's still overshadowed greatly by Tony Vitello in the $3+ million at Tennessee. But that's an investment when you give a coach, a baseball coach, nearly $2.5 million to come in and coach a program.
Do you think? Were you surprised he left? That's who Mississippi State got, I guess. I mean, is it a little bit of familiarity breeds contempt, maybe, with the Virginia situation itself?
I think it was probably, again, him going, man, I'm not getting any younger. I want a chance to go back to Omaha and win another one, and I just don't know if it can happen from here, which is interesting when we have Murray State and Coastal Carolina playing in Omaha.
Right.
You would think UVA would certainly be able to hold their own, but, this past year, UVA Interestingly enough, that they come after him, they underachieved. They're a very talented roster, and came out of the gate stumbling and kind of found it a little bit, and then fell back off. And so would I have thought they would been maybe better suitors for that Mississippi State job? I mean, I thought Nick Mingione from Kentucky might make a run at it. I thought there might be a handful of guys with SEC blood that may run at that job. And obviously every year, it comes up, Cliff Godwin's name, gets bounced around. But I really thought that Nick Mingione from Kentucky was the natural fit to take the job. He had coached there before, so he's familiar with Starkville, the whole thing. But hey, you go get a proven entity like Brian O'Connor, and then you also get Kevin McMullen in that deal. It's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's the other part of that, too.
That's pretty strong.
Coach Mack makes the move.
Yes.
To Mississippi State as well. All right, can you hang for another
Sure.
segment? All right, the great Mike Mullis with us here. We'll get another segment in with Mully, but right now here's Philip, the Ref Pilkington, with the 94.3 The Game Sports Update.
Thank you, P-Man. Starting in Pirate Athletics, Pirate pitcher Bradley Zayak has entered the transfer portal. Zayak had a solid year in the Pirate uniform. He appeared in 14 games, going 1-4 with a 5.40 ERA. He also started 9 games in his 36.2 innings of work in a Pirate uniform. Speaking of collegiate baseball, the College World Series are set. They will begin Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern. That'll be one out in Omaha, Nebraska. The first game will be played between the Wildcats of Arizona and 13-seeded Coastal Carolina. The late game that night will be Louisville and number 8 Oregon State. Looking elsewhere around the sports world right now, it is Game 3 of the NBA Finals tonight. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers will head their series up to Indiana, the home of high school basketball. We'll see if it's the home of the NBA tonight. That series is tied 1-1 after the Thunder won Game 2 in dominating fashion back at home. That'll do it for your 94.3 The Game Sports Flash Update and Pirate Report. Going to take a timeout here on the Patrick Johnson Show. Be back with more with Mike Mullis on the other side.
Remember, get the podcast of the show on the IBX Media app or where you get your podcasts.
I listen on my Apple Watch.
Smart speaker.
Listen while you work.
I listen everywhere.
The Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
The great thing about Mike Mullis is he's never at a loss for words, and at a time I'm struggling to talk for more than 30 seconds consecutively. This is great.
I got you, buddy. Here for you.
The great Mike Mullis, ESPN Plus and ECU Sports Network baseball analyst. How about that?
That's it.
Have you recovered from your time in Myrtle?
Yeah.
That's not the one I was going to hit you out of the gate.
No, it was a great time. It was great to see the team play well, and great working with Dylan. It was good. So, but it's a lot. Yes. It takes a minute to catch your breath when you get back.
And then you had you and I talked as you were going into your big weekend. I see you survived that.
Everybody's home safely.
There you go. That's
so
the most important
we'll just
thing.
wait for the next one.
That's the most important thing. All right. So I'm sure you've got this question a lot. I've gotten this question. How is it that Coastal Carolina, how is it that Murray State can go to Omaha, but East Carolina's yet to do it?
I think we have to compartmentalize this thing. Okay, we have to talk about pre-portal NIL and now. So pre-portal NIL, that's in the past. Don't even know that we have the exact answers for that, but I will tell you my opinion, and it is just that. Again, and speaking specifically to Coastal versus East Carolina philosophically, Coastal has always kind of had an image of being on the edge. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The style of play, the guys they recruited, Gary Gilmore with the painted black mustache, they're in Dirty Myrtle, all these things.
Right.
Which, by the way, that area of Conway has grown up so much now, it's actually got a standalone identity. Their downtown district's very nice. But anyway, they've done some things there. But that program, by being edgy, going back to what we talked about in the last segment, they absolutely embraced what they perceived to be the opportunity that the portal and NIL offered them. Now, mind you, they had always had transfers, okay, for probably more than anybody else in the area. So they saw this as opportunity, whereas we at East Carolina want to keep it the East Carolina that we've always known, right? We we respect the tradition and embrace the, for lack of a better term, the purity of, hey, we're going to bring in the Braden Burrises of the world. We're going to grow them. We're going to develop them. And we may take lumps early, but we're going to see the benefits down the road. And everybody kind of hung on or held on to that thought process. But I say everybody, I mean, I think the staff administratively and the on-field staff had the same feeling. As a matter of fact, we heard statements made by Cliff Godwin that he made no bones about the fact he had no desire to go portal. He had no desire to go spend money on players. He just didn't think it was the way it should be. And so what happens is that, that ship starts turning, and if you're not on the front end of the turn, you got a long ways to go just to try to catch up. And I think the Coastals of the world, again, not nearly as familiar with Murray State's philosophy, but Coastal flat out said, hey, great. If this is the hand we're dealt, this is the hand we're going to play.
Right.
And we're going to do it with a smile. And I will tell you, they strategically had a very interesting situation because of Coach Gilmore's health situation. The NCAA granted them an extra recruiter because Coach Gilmore could not go out and recruit. He had cancer.
Right.
So that gave them theoretically an extra body that
Extra
was
set of eyes
out doing nothing but seeing players. So you've seen now a lot of programs have gone to that where they may be hiring ex-Major League Baseball cross-checkers or scouts, and those guys are just out running players. They're just out trying to see what the best available options may be at the lower levels, be it mid-majors or at the D2 level or the JUCO level.
Right.
So, again, in answer to your question, I think where we are currently and why is Coastal there and we're not, why is Murray State there, we're not, again, I don't know that one as well. But I know that Coastal embraced as they saw it, the opportunity early. They went all in. They raised money. They were very aggressive. They were spending a fair amount of money when a lot of schools weren't spending any money. And now they're in that $750, $800 range, which isn't a crazy amount of money, but it seems to be the kind of the watermark for being competitive if we look at UTSA and others. It
seems like too that they would be able to maybe benefit a little from the rev share as a result of what they've already established and done.
Yeah,
instead of relying on the rev share to be the neutralizer.
I think what you look at with Coastal too, and anybody that visited down there during the regional a couple weekends ago, Coastal, like their football facility, they have, I don't know, it seats 20,000 roughly, maybe a few more, maybe a few less. But they made that the nicest facility they could make that seats 20,000 people. In other words, they took the 10,000 square foot house and squeezed it down to 5,000, but put all the amenities in there.
Right.
And I think Coastal and the Sun Belt at large has been very good at they've been very good at being very good at what they are, if that makes sense. And they've not tried to push their way into the P4. They've not taken up the monikers of we're just they didn't worry about what everybody else in the room was doing. They as a conference just decided we're going to be good at what we're good at. So they've minimized some costs. They don't have the debt load. They've different things, and they've been able to maximize each dollar. Look, I'll tell you, when they came here for the regionals, PJ, a couple years back, their travel party was difference makers. They brought and I know we do the same things, but they brought the top donors. And they wanted to expose them to the environment that East Carolina offers in baseball.
I remember that, yeah.
And they made no bones about it. These people are here not because we're buttering them up for more money. We want them to understand what more money gets the university.
Well, and I think, East Carolina, they do some of that, but, particularly in basketball, that would make a lot of sense to do. I think our donors need to see what's going on around the league. Now, maybe not. It's not like it used to be when Houston and UCF, but there's still better venues,
and there will always be better venues.
But you just need to see how they do things. How's the game day atmosphere?
The venues, in my opinion, the things that the programs like East Carolina have to do, not just East Carolina, have to regroup and say, okay, what improvements can we make, and what's the ROI on those improvements?
Right.
In other words, I sat there and watched, again, for the whole weekend, basically every game except for one that was played in that regional. the game day environment at Coastal was something that could be very easily replicated here that wasn't thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. It was the excitement. It was different. It seemed as though they continued to refresh the experience as the experience went along. It wasn't,
right.
We didn't lean on the same playlist that we've heard for years. We didn't, we didn't have event staff telling people to get off the dugouts. You had a dude that was the MC or the hype man.
Right.
He's dragging people up on the dugouts, and they're doing dances. It had a very, very minor league feel from a game day standpoint.
Look no further than what just happened in Charlotte this past weekend. I mean, I went somewhere Sunday, and it was to get my hair done, get my hair did. And the person doing my hair, she's talking about Savannah Bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, go study that.
No, I'm not. I think the Bananas.
And not just baseball.
Right.
Every collegiate athletic department and marketing department should go and
it is a show. Admittedly, they talk about, they don't talk what time do they play. They say we have a show tonight at such and such.
Right.
I mean, I think the small things like the incorporation of with the Bananas, and I've now seen it other places where the band is involved.
Yeah.
Where you've got the drum line, you've got all these different pieces that, what makes college football so exciting, man? It's the environment, it's the atmosphere, it's the traditions. Take some of those things and bring them over to baseball. Take them, and I mean, the pep band in basketball is what makes college basketball different. It's
right.
It's just part of the environment, and I think those are things. Again, when you look at the Bananas, and like I said, it's not just them anymore because they have opened a lot of eyes. But you see the pep band in baseball more than you've ever seen. But if you look at what goes on in Latin American countries where baseball is king, that's been part of their deal forever. It's a party that happens to have a baseball game going on.
I know they're going to obviously expand the locker rooms and create that. I think the ECU Sports Properties people have some ideas in mind for their hospitality and that kind of thing. And this is all great. But if you're not putting money into talent acquisition, you can build the prettiest buildings in the world. It's not really going to matter.
When talking with coaches now, do facilities play a part? Yes.
I don't think it does.
Let me finish. Are they the most important thing? No. If we look at Murray State, and to your point, they recruited to that ballpark. Players want the amenities, but first and foremost, players want financial compensation.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Well, you know this very well. What's the first question out of every player or representative?
What kind of NL opportunity do I have?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you the other thing we're seeing in the society of amateur, and I use that very, very loosely, sports, is the rise of the agent.
Yeah.
Everybody has an agent or an advisor, and I would challenge, and I don't know how we'd ever know the answer to this, but if we went and looked at, and I'll talk about baseball specifically because I know it a little bit better, if you go out and look at the kids in the portal, I'm going to bet you right now 75 to 90% of the kids in the portal right now have an advisor.
Oh, yeah.
And they're, what that advisor does is maybe the coach from XYZ University can't reach out to the player directly, but that coach can certainly reach out to that advisor, can certainly reach out to the summer coach. It creates that conduit for conversation.
Let's not also just say, well, it's the portal kids who are getting bet. If somebody's staying somewhere, they're getting some money.
Right.
They're getting advised. Somebody is representing them in those, I guess, negotiations, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, no, I had a college coach ask me specifically, why in the world does a kid need an agent? And I gave him 10 reasons, and I'm like, man, and obviously, I can't see that. To me would be the part coaching right now, especially at the Division I level. That would be where the greatest frustration would be, because you're no longer just dealing with mom and dad and junior. You're dealing with the advisor before you can even talk to the family.
There's two things I think sports teams need to hire. I love your idea about a designated recruiter, a cross-checker, just somebody who goes and scouts.
Just evaluates players.
Yeah. you should hire that, and you need to hire a GM.
And you've seen that in football.
Yeah.
And
but
you've
I'm just
seen
saying that's what
Yeah.
to me, instead of this position or that, if you want to succeed, it would seem to me that you would need to have those two elements.
And I think the problem as it relates to baseball is it's already a non-revenue sport that we continue to add. So if you're going to have
I'm
a
just
GM,
talking-
a
I'm talking in
global
general.
GM
Yeah.
that'd be a tough job, but it would be certainly the office of the GM may have people almost the same format as like your SID kind of where you have Malcolm is the chief guy, and then you have guys assigned to each sport. I hear what you're saying. I don't know how you go that path, especially when you're being asked to manage a budget that is on a bungee cord. Like the money that may go out this year.
I'm not saying everybody can do it. But,
Right. And what I mean is even your distribution. So the money that may go out in rev share this year doesn't mean that number will be the same number next year.
Right.
So it's, how do I lay the budget out? How do I make commitments to players that, hey, you're going to be here for 3 years. We're going to do X, Y, Z. How do I know that with that number
I think the NIL
constantly
is
moving?
still going to be
What they're saying is that there's going to be a process by which the NIL will be made to be legal. So it will have to be proven, allegedly. Now, who enforces this? I don't know. It'll have to be proven that the NIL was truly a name, image, and likeness situation as it relates to a business venture, not just a recruiting ploy on the front end. That's effectively what the rev share would be.
Yesterday, IGO had Braden Burris on a show. It was announced later in the afternoon that he was the named to the All-American, one of the freshman All-American teams. Not playing this summer. He's not that he's hurt, but
He's banged up. Long season.
You look, he was still playing about this time last year too. In high school because they went all the way to the championships and that sort of thing. And so he's played a lot of baseball in the last 2 seasons. If you extrapolate it out over less than 2 year period. So, are you surprised though he's not going somewhere even just to get a few ABs, or at this point I don't think he needs it?
I think that's the decision that not knowing the intimacy of the locker room. I think it's like I'm sure that was a conversation that was had. Braden Burris is a baseball player. I'm sure that he was like, no, I'd like to play. But sometimes you got to think for these young guys and go, hey, listen, you've had a ton of ABs, you had a ton of wear and tear.
Right. You
need to allow yourself to heal because let's not fool ourselves. Like the fall for baseball is effectively right around the corner where they'll get started again. So, I guess I could see it both ways. Baseball players want to play baseball at the same time. Somebody again at times has to protect them from themselves.
What's that, Philip? By Duke? By Virginia. Yep. So, Pilk, just giving us word that Pollard has been hired by Virginia.
Well, that was Nostradamus.
All right.
Yeah,
Nostradamus. So this leads us to something else, and I know we're heavy on the segment, Pilk, but what does Duke do now?
I mean, they go looking, and I think you may see the same path that you saw before. Does Kermit Smith come up from Appalachian State and go to Duke? There are a number of people in state. The challenge at Duke, man, is the same challenge it's always been, is the academic standards. So, and Pollard has navigated that magnificently everywhere he's ever been, which makes him a nice fit at Virginia. But I think you're going to see somebody go in there. It'd be interesting, and this is just off the cuff. Does the guy from Cornell come to Duke? And the reason I say that, there is obviously a tie there.
Right.
They don't have post-grads, so the kids from Cornell have a lot of time. If they've been good enough, they ended up at Duke anyway. So is that where they go to get their guy? And I don't even know that guy's name, but that's interesting that it happened that quick with Pollard, I guess. I'd heard the trigger was cocked, and I guess they pulled it this morning. So
interesting. It really is. It's a good job, Duke. They've been to 4 Supers in 7 years.
It's obviously not the facilities you want. I think there's a commitment there to improve those facilities. Pollard has just done an amazing job there. It's not the easiest place in the world to win. But obviously, if you want to play games in front of fans, I don't know that Duke is the place you want to go. It's
that's why their place isn't that big.
That's right. Just, holds about $2,000. So just hasn't been a place that has historically drawn many. But it's not a bad job. It's always going to be Duke. And when it's Duke and you're recruiting for Duke, you're going to recruit basketball. You're going to recruit an improved football program. and you've got the name recognition and academics
It's
to back all that up. It's a brand.
It's a national,
Certainly,
international brand.
certainly
Yeah.
is.
Dan Pepicelli, I believe how that maybe is pronounced at
Is
Cornell.
at Cornell.
Yeah.
Be interested to see if he's the one that lands there. I mean, it seems like at least a natural conversation to bring somebody out of that ilk of an academic institution that has had success in cultivating players. So, be interesting. All fun stuff.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
All right, we'll talk to Mully more maybe next week. We'll see. All right, good to see you, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, always.
All right, back to wrap up the PJ Show after this.
And now, the stunning conclusion.
Why is everyone screaming?
On 94.3 The Game.
All right, big thanks to Mike Mullis for his time here today. Coming up tomorrow, we're scheduled to be joined by ECU golf alum from ESPN Plus's coverage of the PGA Tour and PGA Tour and U.S. Open Radio. Our old friend John McGinnis will be on to preview the U.S. Open, which gets underway on Thursday. Later in the week, we'll have our concert on the Common Thursday, so we will hear again from Mark Miller. And also, looks like Wags will be with us on Thursday, so that's happening then. Jonathan Wagner from On One previewing the Omaha field after it was set yesterday with the win by Murray State over Duke 5-4. Again, the news out of the Pirate portal from earlier today is Bradley Zayak, who got the start against Coastal in the Pirates elimination game in the Conway Regional, has entered the portal. And Duke head coach Chris Pollard has taken the job at Virginia. It appears imminent that Duke will be making a hire, and it'll be Cornell's coach. So we'll see how that plays out. We also have been in touch yesterday and today with the folks at the American. Tim Pernetti, who is the conference commissioner, has agreed to do an interview with us. We talked to him for the first time around this time last year. And we're waiting to hear back on a date to conduct that interview, be it in the live format or be it done earlier and then aired in our normal slot. So we're kind of in those talks right now. But Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of the American, fresh off an appearance with John Gruden and a hot interview there, will be appearing with us. So we're looking forward to that. All right, John McGinnis set to be with us tomorrow. Big thanks to Philip Pilkington. Welcome back to him. Thanks to intern Brandon as well. Thanks to Mike Mullis for being in the studio with us today. We'll see you in the morning, not talking as much on Talk of the Town. Hell, I might not even get a word in edgewise. And then back here tomorrow on the Patrick Johnson Show. Going to rest and rehab the voice a little bit. Try to get it going and be good to go for tomorrow. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody.